Good morning to one and all. Welcome you all to the daily Indian Express newspaper analysis for the date 5th January 2024, brought to you by Ganesh IAS Academy. Okay, let's get into the today's newspaper analysis. Mentioned here are the list of articles which we are going to have the analysis in the upcoming slides. So have a look at it. Okay, let's get into the analysis of each and every article one by one. Government may slash disinvestment target for the next financial year by 40%. So the news is related to slashing down the target of the disinvestment process for the next financial year. This is what the news is about. Okay, let's first look into how the news has been related to examination. Under prelims, the news is related to current events of national as well as international importance. Similarly, under prelims it has been related to economic and social development, and for mains it has been related to GS paper 3 economic and development under a subtopic called Indian economy and issues relating to planning, mobilization of resource, growth, development as well as employment. So under this topic only the news has been related with. Okay, let's look into the further explanation of the news. Government may aim for disinvestment target of around 30,000 crores for the next financial year, which is very 40% less than the targeted amount for the current financial year. But due to the what is the reason that has been said is that due to the elections in the upcoming months and then the resultant formation of the new government would reduce the disinvestment process and its related expectations. So that is the reason why the targets has been for the next financial year has been lowered, and this financial year there will be an effort to ditch the gap between the estimated target as well as the actual disinvestment proceedings that has happened. And why there has been a gap between the estimated target as well as the actual proceeding which the government has earned from the disinvestment process is mainly because of the elections that is happening around the states, and they delay in what kind of organization has been delayed in the disinvestment plans this financial year is IDBI Bank, NMDC Steel, and as well as Container Corporation of India. Such kind of PSUs have been delayed in their disinvestment proceedings because of the state election that has been happening around the country. So let's look into what is this disinvestment is. Disinvestment is the process of sale or liquidation of the asset by government and the state public sector undertaking. And there are three types of disinvestment process. First is minority disinvestment, where the government retains the majority in the company and they will be selling their minority stakes to the other stakeholders. Secondly, majority disinvestment, where the government will be holding the minority stake and the remaining major part of the stake will be sold to the other stakeholders or the private organizations. And then third type is the complete privatization, where the organization or the central public sector undertaking or the government or government companies will be sold outright to the private organization, where after the selling of the organization to the private company, government will not have any stake or say in the management or the other decision making process. So these are all the three types of disinvestment that has been available right now. So what is the benefit of disinvestment is, first of all, it will enable the government to finance the capital expenditure, and also at the same time it will reduce the deficit, most importantly the fiscal deficit of the government, and it will inject the private innovation as well as the private management practice into the public sector undertaking, and then it will save the taxpayers money from being made into the less productive activities or the less profit industries. So what is the criticism that has been placed against disinvestment is, first of all, the equity would be reduced. See, the government organizations, government departments, their main objective is to maintain equity in the society. When the organization has been shifted to private organization, means the profit motive will be will take the first priority of then the equity priority, so that the equity will get compromised when the ownership has been transferred from government to private, and then it will increase the private monopolization across the sectors. Thirdly, the measuring asset values is not foolproof. That is, the values through which the values or the standards through which the organization values has been determined is not foolproof, and it has been severely criticized because of lack of consultation as well as lack of the international best practices in valuing the assets that the government has. Finally, the vague classification of the strategic as well as non-strategic sectors. So these are all the criticism that has been placed against the disinvestment. So what is the obstacles in the process is, so when the disinvestment proceeding is going on means the process will face certain obstacles. So what are all the obstacles? First and foremost is the obstacles produced by the employee union, and secondly, the land titles, the lease as well as the land use agreements will involve several kinds of dispute, which will take some time to get resolved. Thirdly, the bureaucratic red tapeism. So these are all the hurdles the process faces, or the disinvestment process faces. So these are all the criticism as well as the hurdles the disinvestment process faces. So what need to be studied further is, we should know about DIPAM as well as INVIT as well as NIIF. These are all the things which is related to disinvestment. So we have to know about the structure, function as well as the objective, and then the corpus the fund has, most importantly the NIIF has. So these are all the areas which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. The right support. The news is related to the discrimination that has been faced by crops like oil seeds as well as pulses against the rice, wheat and the other familiar crops. So the news is related to, under prelims, economic and social development. Similarly, under mains it has been related to agriculture, GS paper 3 agriculture, under a subtopic called issues relating to direct and indirect farm subsidies and MSPs. Let's move on to the news. So the oil seed as well as the pulses farmers suffers due to two reasons. First is the MSP. The minimum support price, even though being announced for majority of all the crops, but in actual implementation, the crops like rice, wheat as well as sugarcane is given more priority when compared to the oil seed as well as the pulses crop. Secondly, there is a bias in the import duty. So the crops like wheat attracts nearly 40% of import duty, so that the import cost is very high, which in turn will be leading to higher import price for the products which has been obtained from the international market. But in the case of crude palm, sunflower oil, it receives zero duty, so that it is initiating or making the domestic production more competitive, and sometimes the international products are overtaking the domestic production of domestic production of oil as well as pulses. So these are all the discrimination that has been faced by oil as well as oil seed as well as pulses farmers against the major crops like rice, wheat and sugarcane. And in terms of India's edible oil import, it has risen from 11.6 million to 116.5 million for the past decades, that is from 2013 to 2023 period. And the values of the imported edible oil is $16.7 billion, which is 2/3 of the domestic consumption. So that we could able to see that nearly 2/3 of the edible oil which we are consuming has been imported from the outside world. Only 1/3 has been produced domestically. So it crowd out the domestic production of the oil seed as well as the related vegetable oils. And at the same time, oil and pulses haven't received the much attention with relation to the research and development which the rice, wheat as well as sugarcane are getting. And the efforts in terms of resource like monetary resource, human resource as well as other technological resource have been provided very less attention to the oil as well as the pulses. And at the same time, in terms of pulses, the breakthrough in terms of science was limited to breeding of short duration crops and then photothermos insensitive varieties in Ghana and China and Mu. So these are all the discrimination that has been faced by oilseed as well as pulses against the major crops. And at the same time, the two subsectors of the Indian agriculture systems are livestock as well as horticulture, which have registered high growth for the past decade, and this growth has been mainly led by the market only. But in the terms of the crops subsectors like rice, wheat, sugarcane, oils and pulses, which we have seen in the previous slide, the development is mostly being controlled or administered by the state, and as a result of which the growth and development of this crop subsector has been lopsided. That is, only certain handful of crops only are getting major recognition and other handful of crops are not getting the recognition which you need to get. So that is the reason why what the author is suggesting, that the best way to replace such kind of discrimination is to ensure that the price based support, whether it is MSP or input subsidy, should be replaced with per acre income transfer support. So this is what the suggestion that has been made by the author with relation to the article. So this is what the news is about. Like, okay, let's look into what does this MSP is. So CSEP plays a major role in recommending the MSPs to the government. Based on the recommendation, the Cabinet Committee of Economic Affairs will decide the MSP for the certain handful of crops. So what are all the crops? It is the kharif crops, which contains 14 crops under it, and then the rabi crops, which contains 6 crops under it, and then other commercial crops, which is the 2 crops which comes under this subpart. So these are all the crops that has been covered under minimum support price. So what are the benefits the MSP holds is, first and foremost is the income security. The MSP provides income security to the farmers so that it will act as cushion as well as it will act as motivating factor for the farmer to produce the products. Secondly, it ensures price stabilities across the crops, and then it ensures the food security to the people, and because of the increased motivation which has been provided by the income support, it will ensure the more production. So like in the case of rice, where we have become the surplus country, and it act as one of the agent to control the food inflations, apart from the monetary policy which is being formulated by the RBI to control the overall inflation in an economy. And then it ensures by injecting the more amount of money in terms of MSP to the farmers, it ensures the rural growth will also be recovered. Rural growth will be incomparable with the urban growth. So this is what the benefit the MSP has. So what the issues are with MSP is, there is inequality in procuring. Even though as I said, the MSP has been announced for majority of the products, only certain handful of the products procurement is given more importance. And then the procurement infrastructure is also acting as one of the hindrance for the kind of discrimination that is happening against the other crops. Thirdly, less budget that has been allocated for the overall procurement of the crops. And then exclusion in the coverage of the farmers is also acting as the hindrance for the holistic coverage of the crops in terms of implementation. And what are all things which we needed to be studied is, we should be aware of what is FRP, who announced it and who recommends it, and what are all the factors will be considered under it. Secondly, we should also be aware of the livestock sector scheme being implemented by the government to promote the livestock sector. Thirdly, we should also be aware of the structure, function as well as the evolution of the PDS system in India. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. India, Nepal signed Power Pact MOU in the renewable energy. So the news is related to India and Nepal recently signed a Power Pact to transfer the power to the India, and the MOU also been signed in the renewable energy sector to ensure the renewable transaction that is happening, the power transaction that is happening between the country being diversified to other renewable sector. So how the news has been related to examination is, under prelims it is related to current events of national as well as international important. Similarly under mains it is related to GS paper 2 international relation under a subtopic called India and its neighborhood relation. So this is how the news is being related with examination. So let's look into the news. So the Nepal has signed a long-term agreement for the export of 10,000 megawatt power to India for the next 10 years. And at the same time, the MOU has also been signed for renewable energy to diversify the power transaction that is happening between the country from the fossil fuel to the non-fossil fuel based transaction. And the 3 cross-border transmission line has also been completed recently and it also been inaugurated. They are 132 kilovolt Roxal Parvanipur and then 132 kilovolt Kushana Kataya and then New Nautanwa Mainhaya lines. So these are all the 3 transmission lines that has been inaugurated along with the MOUs that has been signed between India and Nepal. Okay, let's look into the India-Nepal relationship. So the first relationship is the water resource cooperation. India currently supplies around 600 millivolt of the power to the Nepal, not 600, 6000 milliwatt of power to the Nepal, and the mechanism to discuss issues relating to water resource as well as the hydroelectric cooperation is also been established to ensure that the power flow that is happening because of the hydroelectricity and then the other water related issues will be sorted out then and there. Secondly, in terms of education, thousands of scholarships as well as seats have been provided by India for the Nepalese national. So and the cultural exchange are also being initiated in terms of media organization as well as other cultural by promoting the other cultural related organizations in their respective country, and at the same time easing the process for the Nepalese people as well as the Indian people those who are visiting Nepal for the cultural exchanges, so that the people to people cooperation will get enhanced. And then infrastructure development is also being prioritized. India provides assistance in various sectors like infrastructure, health, water resource, education, and then the rural development for the Nepal. So these are all the areas where the relationship between the India and Nepal has been strengthened for the past few years. So what the challenges the relation faces is, first and foremost, the challenge is related to the territorial dispute. For example, the Kalapani dispute which was arised recently. Secondly, the Chinese interference in the politics as well as the other developmental activities that has been happening in Nepal. Thirdly, it is the security threat along the border. Because of porous border and then ease of movement between the India and Nepal, this route has been used for other illegal activities like drug trafficking, gun running, and then other women and child trafficking, such kind of thing which is increasing the internal security issue for India. And then slow implementation of the project that has been promised by India to the Nepal is also providing a vacuum for the development which is being captured by the Chinese government. So they are fast forwarding their promoting their infrastructure development in Nepal, so that it is acting as one of the heated concern for the India with Nepal. And the 1950 friendship treaty was also perceived as unequal, because what the Nepalese politicians as well as other stakeholders are saying is that it is being implemented by India or signed by India without any consensus with the Nepalese people. So that is the reason why it is being said by them as unequal. So they wanted to reform the 1950 friendship treaty to inculcate all the stakeholders values in it. So these are all the challenges the relation between India and Nepal faces right now. So what are the way forward is, see, the promises that India had made to the Nepal for the developmental related activity need to get fast tracked, so that the Chinese activities will get countered. Secondly, the borders need to get managed, and then the borders need to be smartly fenced so that these kind of illegal activities will get reduced, which in turn will ensure safety and security for the people, and then safety for the internal security of India. Thirdly, the investment need to get fast track, as I said, to counter China and also to ensure the strong bond between the India and Nepal. And then the water issues as well as the border related issues need to get resolved then and there, so that it won't get into any kind of heated exchange between the country, so that it will lead to political turmoil between the relationship. So what are the things which we needed to be further aware of is, we should be aware of the Nepal geography and what are all the states, Indian states that shares borders with the Nepal. Secondly, we should also be aware of India's neighborhood policy. Thirdly, we should also be aware of the SAGA's India policy. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. ADITYA L1 ISRO'S mission to study sun set to be placed in the final orbit, that is the hollow orbit, tomorrow, January 6th. So this is what the news is. After traveling more than 100 days, it is going to get placed in the orbit which it was set to get placed. So this is what the news is about. Okay, let's look into how the news has been related to examination. Under prelims, the news is related to general science. Similarly, under mains, it has been related to awareness in the field of IT, space and computer, which comes under GS paper 3 science and technology. Okay, let's look into the ADITYA L1, which the mission aims to study with the mission which is aimed to study the sun. The ADITYA L1 is inching closer to its destination of final orbit, that is the hollow orbit. It would get into what is known as hollow orbit, which is around the Lagrange point 1, and the Lagrange point 1 is one of the 5 Lagrange points which is present in between the Earth and solar system, and the 5 points are actually stationary point, and they will offer a stable location for the spacecraft to view the sun. And at the same time, L1 is about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth, which is just 1% of distance between the sun and the Earth. And then the ADITYA has already reached the L1, but it is from there it has been projected towards the hollow orbit. Why it has been projected to a hollow orbit around the L1 is, even though the L1 is the stable position, it is difficult to keep the spacecraft firmly fixed at that location because of certain geographical or the geomorphological difficulty it has, and so it is moving towards the hollow orbit, which is around the Lagrange point L1. So after completing 124 days, it is going to get placed in the hollow orbit, and during its travel itself, the ADITYA has started collecting the scientific data as well as the images related to the sun, and it also carries payloads like visible emission line coronagraph, solar ultraviolet imaging telescope, solar low energy X-ray spectrometer, which in short form called as SLEX, and high energy L1 orbiting X-ray spectrometer. These are all the things, are the payloads which is being carried by L1 to directly track the sun and its related physical as well as chemical components. And at the same time, from the hollow orbit, the satellite will have full access to the solar storm, radiation and other emissions which is being arising from the sun. The 7 payloads which the ADITYA L1 is carrying will ensure the comprehensive study of the sun from multiple wavelengths, and so that they can study the radiation, particles and then magnetic field which is being released by the sun, and the data that has been bartered from this observation will act as complementary to the observations made by the NASA as well as European Space Agency's sun mission. And the coronagraph which is being placed in the spacecraft will enable the spacecraft to look closer to the surface of the sun. So this is what the thing is, and to study the faint light that has been coming from corona, we need to block the bright light that is coming from the photosphere. So photosphere is nothing but the surface of the sun. So the catching the sun, the blocking the photosphere requires the occulting disk, which is the disk that has been used to block the light that is coming from the photosphere, that is the surface of the sun. This the occulting disk size need to be double the size of the photosphere. But in the India case, it is just 1.05 times only the size of the photosphere. So there is a chance that it may not able to block the light, or it may not able to read the faint light that is arising from the corona. Why the scientists are saying like that is, previously the NASA as well as the European space agencies have also launched similar like sun mission, where their occulting disk is just 1.1 meter or the 1.1 times of the size of photosphere, which is higher than the size of the India's occulting disk. So their device also failed to record the faint light that is coming from corona. So inferring from the experience which they NASA as well as the European Space Agency had, the Indian scientists are also expect that this may not able to record the occulting disk which India has sent along with the ADITYA L1 could not able to record the faint light that is emitted from the corona, that is the outer surface of the sun. So this is what the news about with relation to the ADITYA L1 is about. So what are all the things which we needed to be further aware of is, we should be aware of Chandrayaan 3, and also we should be aware of the ASTROSAT and then the EXPOSAT, which was recently released during the New Year time, that is the January 1, 2024. So these are all the things which we needed to be further aware of, and with this we have reached the end of this topic. Okay, let's look into today's prelims practice question. Mentioned here is the today's practice prelims question. Those students, those who are watching this session online, please do comment the option point for the question which you are seeing right now on the board. And with this, we have reached the end of today's session. Please do like, comment, share as well as subscribe Ganesh IAS YouTube channel, so that you will be receiving the daily current affair notification as well as the weekly science and technology and environmental current affair notification, which will be taking place in Tuesday as well as Friday respectively, and other important prelims related sessions that will be brought to you in the future by the Ganesh IAS Academy. Thank you.